Rounds 9 and 10 of the World Touring Car Championship bring us to Brno, the second largest city in the Czech Republic, 2 hours away from Prague. Defending champion and current leading driver Andy Priaulx will start round 9 second on the grid in his BMW, behind Spain's Felix Portero, who's on pole position for the first time in his Seat. Alex Zanardi completes the trio of BMWs at the front of the grid, with Jordi Genet in the Seat Leon making up the second row. Zanardi and Genet both moving up the grid after Jörg Müller and Augusto Farfus were penalised by the stewards for not slowing down during their first laps while yellow flags were being waved. Müller now starts 7th on the grid, Farfus back on 9th. Let's hear what Müller had to say about that decision.
It's very clear in the regulation, if there's yellow flag, your lap time is gonna be deleted. I saw the yellow flags, I saw the car which was very far away from the circuit, so there was no danger at all, but on the other hand, I know the regulations. Usually I should have come in, I didn't, I tried it. Race director saw that I did my best lap time under yellow, so sorry for me, I lost it, but it's the right decision.
So Jörg Müller there, philosophical about that decision to move him back on the grid. Alongside me is former touring car driver Kelvin Burt. And Kelvin, just explain to us new fans watching motorsport all the time the etiquette when posting a lap time under a yellow flag in qualifying.
Well, as you said, he was philosophical. He knows the rules. He's a professional driver with a lot of experience, but the rule is, and they've got very advanced electronic timing system for this series, just like Formula One. The circuit is divided into sectors, and the rule is when somebody goes off and there's an incident, there's a yellow flag, that yellow flag appears at the bottom of the timing screen, which everybody can see. If anybody then subsequently improves their time, then obviously they didn't slow down going past the incident. The rules are you must slow down and exercise caution going past the incident. Müller and also Farfus both improved their times and also their grid positions whilst the yellow flag was waving, so that's why they were both penalised. But just thinking back to the end of the session, the qualifying session, quite a few cars improved at the end of the session, and I think from memory there were 2 cars off at the time, not exactly at the same time, but for the last 5 minutes there were 2 cars off at various points, and I somehow think not everybody was penalised. But yeah, he's quite philosophical. He's still there in a reasonably good position, 7th on the grid with 45 kilos on board of success ballast, which is a good performance for him. Another very good performance by Andy Priaulx, front row of the grid with 60 kilos, which is the maximum ballast you can have. That is an outstanding performance, and the BMW is looking strong.
Yes, the BMW is dominant. Portero, as I said, his first ever pole position and the first for the BMW team Italy, Spain on the front of the grid. Andy Priaulx second, Alex Zanardi third, all in BMWs, before we have Jordi Genet in the Seat. But with those penalties for Farfus and Müller, it just mixes things around a little bit at the front.
It does, yeah, because originally we had 5 BMWs in the top 6 with only the 1 Seat of Genet. That car, by the way, has the new spec of engine with a higher compression ratio. Seat are trying that. They've struggled with straight line speed, and he's by far the highest placed car, Seat car. He's 4th. Their next car is 10th on the grid, Tarquini. So it seems to be paying off. Not only have they got the new engine, but because they got the new engine with more power, they've had to have a 25 kilo penalty on that car. So even with 25 kilos, the new engine seems to be doing the job. But history says this is a BMW favoured track. They've won 5 of the last 6 races here in the last 6 years. I think Robert Huff won the other one in the Chevrolet. This is Larini's Chevrolet we're looking at now, so bodes for a BMW race, I think.
Yes, picturesque setting for this track in the countryside, in the middle of a forest, scattered by trees, and a very hilly circuit as well, which we've seen has also come into play. The drivers dealing with the up and down hills. A long history of touring car championships being held here in Brno. Also a venue for two-wheeled motorsport, MotoGP and World Superbike stop off here along the way. And unlike Po 2 weeks ago, Kelvin, plenty of places to overtake today.
Yeah, it's a wide track, it's a very long lap, and most of the corners are sort of medium speed with a fair bit of braking down to third gear, second for the slowest bit. So they're approaching them in fifth or sixth gear, so there's good opportunities. It's a wide track and you've got a long braking area, which is usually the recipe you want for overtaking opportunities. There's the young Brazilian Farfus, one of the two penalised drivers. You see the reflective blanket there to keep the heat off him, but we saw an interview with him this morning before the warm-up, and he looked very relaxed and confident, so he bodes well for him for a good result from 9th on the grid.
Yeah, 5.4 kilometres this circuit, one of the longest in the World Touring Car calendar, and these two races just 10 laps each. Race 1, remember, is a rolling start, race 2 a standing start, and the front 8 finishers from race 1 will reverse places on the grid, so the person finishing 8th in this race will be on pole position for race 2 later on this afternoon.
Might be interesting to see whether they battle to finish 8th to give themselves front row for race 1. That's race 2, beg your pardon. So that's always a possibility, but no, they're all competitive guys. They'll be going for position, I'm sure. But Jörg Müller again looking relaxed. 7th he starts after the penalty. You see the tyre warmers there, and hot weather here. It's approaching 10 o'clock local time, so yeah, hot weather. And of course they've got the second race will be in the middle of the afternoon. It was hot and dusty yesterday. We saw a lot of the cars falling off at the edge of the corners. They're using all the road, using the curbs on the exit, Alan Menu and the Chevrolet there, and we saw quite a lot of the cars dropping a wheel into the sand, so condition of the track will probably become a factor later in the race.
And you can see bare-chested fans and shorts and t-shirts weather. We'll hopefully get a track temperature for you come up on the screen shortly. I think it was 42 degrees the track temperature yesterday afternoon for qualifying, and the way it looks there, the way the people are sitting in summer attire, it looks like it's going to be just as hot today, if not more.
Yeah, although it's not a long race, 10 laps only, won't be a problem physically for the drivers. The bigger problem they'll have is conserving their tyres, but again, because it isn't such a long race, that won't be a massive problem, but it's certainly a question for the front-wheel drive cars. This one here is the quickest front-wheel drive car, the Seat of Jordi Genet, and it's an advantage perhaps that the BMWs have, because their rear wheels drive, their front wheels steer. Front-wheel drive cars, obviously the front tyres have to do all of the work, so it's harder to keep a balance for the car, and what we mean by balance is the balancing grip between the front and the rear of the car. You often hear drivers talking about balance. The BMW has an advantage because each of the tyres do 50% of the work compared to the front-wheel drive car, but that's not to say we get to some circuits that do favour the front-wheel drive cars more. The BMWs by regulation have to be a heavier car than the front-wheel drive cars, and there's quite an equivalency formula run in this series. The organisers often vary the weights of the cars and the inlet manifold sizes to balance the cars, to balance the performance of the different cars, because inevitably they're all different, and what we don't want is one car dominating the race.
Alex Zanardi there, promoted to third on the grid, one of those benefiting from the penalising of Farfus and Müller for those infringements under the yellow flag in qualifying, a qualifying session that didn't really come to life until very late on. Jordi Genet thought he had it nailed. 13 minutes to go, he was sat on the pit wall thinking he had pole position, but then got completely swamped by the BMWs. 5 minutes past the hour, the race is due to get underway here in Brno in the Czech Republic, the first of 2 races in the World Touring Car Championships, rounds 9 and 10, and we will bring you all the action from the 2 races coming up very shortly indeed, as we get a shot there of Felix Portero, and we'll be bringing you all the action from Brno in the Czech Republic right after we've taken this short break. A hot and sunny Brno in the Czech Republic, and Felix Portero in the BMW Starting on the front of the grid for race 1 of the afternoon, round 9 of the championship. Alongside him on front row of the grid, Andy Prio there, still looking for his first win in this year's competition, despite leading the championship table by 2 points from Augusto Farfus. 1 and 2 then BMW, 3 BMW as well, Alex Zanardi, with Jordi Janay 4th on the grid. Jordi Janay, the older brother of Marc Janay, who's busy driving a Le Mans car this weekend. And we're just getting ready for the formation lap ahead of a 10-lap race. And we were just saying off air there, Kelvin, about how short it seems, only having a 10-lap race for these 2 races in World Touring Cars.
Yes, Mike, this is the first time I've commentated on this series this year, and I somehow expected the races to be, for a World Championship touring car race, around 40 minutes, 35-40 minutes, but I'm sure they vary the format from year to year, but yeah, 10 lap is a very short race for these type of cars. It means they've got to go for it from the word go, and they've got to fight to the max and not perhaps conserve the cars as much as would be the case with a longer race. So we're hoping for some battle. We said earlier the circuit's very wide here. There's lots of chances for 2 or 3 cars side by side, and we saw that in the single-seater race yesterday, the Formula Master race yesterday. There was, I think at the start, there was four abreast in some places. So we're certainly looking for some good battling as they make their way round, warming up the tyres gently. Good rear view there. I think that's Zanardi's, the 3rd place BMW, with the Seat of Genet behind him. That looks like a Chevrolet with a Seat in front.
And remember that it's a rolling start for race 1 of World Touring Cars weekend. Race 2, a more traditional standing start. Again, just to vary things around and add a little bit of spice. From your experience, Kelvin, rolling starts, have you had much experience with those?
Yeah, quite a few in GT racing. There's a technique, definitely, that people do get it wrong. You've got to be alert, and you've got to stay close to the car in front. The common mistake people often make is leave a gap like that, and not that he's leaving a gap for the start, but leave a gap of that kind of size with a hope to anticipate the start and get a run up on the guy in front. But the problem is, when you do leave a gap, if the race starts, you've already given yourself a 50-metre penalty. So you've got to stay really close to the guy in front. You can't try and anticipate when it will start. You just have to stay as close as you can. But it's generally a safer way of starting than a standing start. But it is variety. We've got a standing start for the second race. The big debate in touring cars here is the standing start usually favours the rear-wheel drive BMW. They get a bit better traction off the line. Again, with front-wheel drive, as you drop the clutch, the weight of the car moves backwards, which unloads the front tyres. So it's harder to get a front-wheel drive car off the line. That's not to say you can't get a good start, but that's why we have the 2 different types of start.
And I suppose it will all hinge on how Felix Portero, the pole sitter, gets away. His first season in World Touring Cars, having come from the GP2 series last year, but he's making his mark early on, and I suppose he is the one who will determine how this rolling start goes.
Sure, yeah, it's down to the pole man. He controls the speed. He's supposed to keep the field bunched up, but what the cheeky ones sometimes do is they'll go slowly into the penultimate corner and then just leg it and leave, or try and leg it and leave everyone else to get to fight each other. But if Andy's on the ball, Andy Prio in second, which I'm sure he will be, then he'll just latch right onto the boot of Portero and not allow that to happen. You see them bunching up there as they go up the hill. Portero's very slow here. The safety car still controlling the pace there in the front, the red one, so they can't start yet, but the pole man controls the pace. They're forming into grid formation now. The pole man controls the speed through the last few corners, and he's supposed to keep it at about 50 miles an hour thereabouts, but different drivers employ different techniques. He's a young driver, Portero. He won't have done this many times. Where are we? Round 7 or 8 of the championship, round 9 of the championship, so he'll have done 4 or 5 of these before, but he's got some experience at high level.
And we really did get a sense as they came around there of the up and down hilly terrain that they've got to deal with as well here in Brno. It's quite an interesting little circuit, this one.
It's unusual to have so much elevation change. Now the speed is building up a bit. They're still in grid formation. The lights are red. They cannot accelerate till the lights go green. The ones at the back are jumping a bit and they're away, and instantly they all fan out. 6, 5, 6 abreast. It's hard to see who's got the lead. I think it's Portero. That blue Seat coming down the inside's got some good speed, but looks to be Portero to me. Really close on this contact. That's Andy Prio going round. The championship leaders in the gravel.
Prio's off.
Just confirmed. Yes, it is.
Jordi as well, I think, went off there.
Two of the front runners.
So drama on the first corner. We did anticipate it, and you really did see as they did get the go-ahead to cross the line and start racing. They really were all bunched up going into that opening corner, and sadly it was the championship leader and reigning champion Andy Prio along with Jordi.
Two more off
went
here.
off. Tom Coronel off there.
The independent. I think I can see Jörg Muller in second place, which is incredible, from 7th on the grid. I'm just trying to make out the name.
Portero, Muller and Farfus in third. Fourth as well is a BMW, so BMW's and that's Andy Prio's race over. What a disappointment for Prio,
the championship leader. But we've got BMWs 1 through 4, so they're still looking strong, even though their championship leader is in the gravel at the moment. Great start from Jörg Muller from 7th on the grid. He obviously benefited and picked a hole through that spin in the first corner. James Thompson having a look around the outside of Robert Huff's Chevrolet. Should switch back inside here. Yeah, he's got the run on him. That's a good move by Thompson. Next corner's a right-hander, so he's got the inside.
So we know that Prio is out. There's a confirmation after the opening lap. Felix Portero starting on pole and getting away the best. Jörg Muller in second, Farfus third, Alex Zanardi dropping down a place to fourth, Nicola Larini, Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, Alain Menu rounding out the top 8. But it looks like we've got the safety car out, presumably because of that incident on the first corner involving Andy Prio, and we think Jordi Genet. They presumably want to move Prio's car, which was stuck there in the gravel. Yeah, there were another 2 off at the next corner as well, so probably a good chance to tidy up. Now let's have another look at the start, and yeah, they all fanned out. It's very, very busy. I'm looking for Jörg Muller because he profited and they're all crowding to the inside there, trying to keep the inside line, but there's 3 or 4. That yellow Seat on the outside, which I think was Genet, actually sandwiched 4 cars, and he set that off in motion, and I think he regained the track, and it's Andy Prio that suffered. See the private Seat of Cortal spun round. That's the car that knocked off Prio. I think Genet remade the track. There's the contact on Prio. He goes backwards into the gravel, and Genet's just gone behind him. Hoping that nobody else comes off, but we're back on board here with the cars cruising behind the safety car. Or is that another look of the start lap somewhere further? Yeah, that's the second incident, which took out Coronel's and
Rangoni's
BMW's. The Rangoni getting back on there and bringing a whole load of dust and gravel back onto the track with him, so this will take a little while to sort out, but huge disappointment in particular for Andy Prio. Just a 2-point lead going into this weekend in Brno, the reigning champion. He's picked up enough points along the way to give him the championship lead, but without actually picking up a race win so far, so he's done well. Yeah, he's had a consistent speed. He's always been in the top 3 or 4, but that's not the way he would want to start the weekend. Of course, that also means he'll start race 2 from the very back, so he's not going to come away from Brno with the championship lead intact, that's for sure. And carrying a 60-kilo weight ballast, the maximum. There's another look from another angle. It's so busy, difficult to pick what happened, but I saw from the other angle, Jordi Genet on the outside there, the left car pinches in. Well, basically there's 4 abreast, and you can't. There was no way they were all going to get domino effect onto that piece of tarmac. Domino effect, and unlucky for Andy, who was he was hit from the rear. This is Andy's car in front. The blue car hits him and spins him round, but the blue car itself is spinning.
Yeah, it's a bit of a lottery, and Jörg Muller profited greatly from that one.
That was Pierre-Yves Courtal, the Belgian driver in one of the private Seat Leons. Most of his racing career has come in his home country. The safety car still out at Brno. It's just a 10-lap race, and at the moment the safety car is going to be out for a certain percentage of that.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually stop the clock in effect, or whether these are counters race laps, but it looks like they might be ready to go at the end of this lap. They're about just a third of the way around the lap, and Andy Prio's back in his garage. He won't be happy, obviously, doesn't want to talk to us, so he's straight in to calm down.
No, probably just as well we don't have a microphone in that the BMW garage there. You can probably hear, you'd probably be able to hear the helmets getting thumped against the wall, I'd imagine.
So warming the tyres up then. Not that the weather's, and I think, are they on the pit straight here? So looks like safety car for another lap. Is this the pit straight? No, they're about halfway around the lap, beg your pardon. Some damage on that Alfa there in the nose, and that's Rangoni's BMW also with damage. And there is Genet right at the back, who, remember, started on the second row of the grid, so he's not had a good start to the weekend either. No,
he did at least get back out of the gravel though, and get the car back on the track, which is something to try and salvage some points from this opening race of the weekend. This looks like the restart then, the 4 BMWs in unison, and following those we've got a Chevrolet, and the Chevrolet of Larini, and then 2 Seats. So just about to restart, and they've added a lap on, so they did just stop the clock effectively. So we're now an 11 lap race here in Brno. So the restart after the safety car, after 2 shunts on the opening lap in Brno, and the restart is underway with Portero, the poleman, away cleanly, with 3 other BMWs following on behind him, before we have a Chevrolet and a Seat, but not anywhere near the congestion on this opening corner, as Thompson's having a right old look there on board with him. Yeah, he's following the independent Seat, I think that is, and he's well placed here for a lunge up the inside. He goes outside, dives inside. Can he carry this off? Good move, and yes, through. He does. He's ahead of Courtals. Yeah, good move by Thompson, and he protects the inside for the following corner. So it's BMW 1, 2, 3, 4, Portero, Muller, Farfus, Zanardi, then a gap to the Chevrolet of Larini and the 2 Seats. Not going particularly strongly, the Seats, at the start of this race. Somebody else going off at the back there, but no problem. This is a quicker car regaining, but a bit too quick, so he's run wide again. That's Tiago Monteiro, the single-seater graduate, and Michel Jourdain Jr. with him, also another single-seater graduate. Come into this series from Champ Car and NASCAR, which is a very unusual route to come into racing in Europe, but there he is in his midfield battle. Thompson holding that place, but under some pressure from those 2 independent Seats. Thompson, not the best of weekends for him, qualifying down in 14th place this weekend. He did pick up a double win in Valencia a couple of rounds ago, but since then the N Technology team not able to recreate those performances. Yeah, he's not looking strong here. The car seems to have a lot of understeer, and struggling also is this car, Nicola Larini, who's definitely holding up the 2 Seats behind him. I think it's Ivan Muller right behind him, well placed for a pass, but the 4 BMWs are getting away, so those 2 Seat drivers will want to get by this Chevrolet as soon as they can into the final chicane, which leads onto the pit straight. And Larini definitely struggling for a bit of pace. His car carries 35 kilos of success ballast, I beg your pardon. He's had no wins this year, but 35 kilos on board, so he's going to be struggling a little bit, and those 2 Seats will be anxious to get by. They can see the BMWs going away. Yeah, things are quickly getting spread out again after that safety car incident. Portero leading then, Muller second, Augusto Farfus third, Zanardi in fourth, Larini in the Chevrolet 5th, Ivan Muller, Gabriel Tarquini and Alain Menu in the top 8, Thompson 9th and Peddler in 10th. This chap Peddler sitting in for Roberto Colciago this weekend after Colciago dislocated his shoulder a fortnight ago in the Po meeting, and giving a good account of himself is Massimiliano Peddler.
Great name for a driver. So there's the 4 BMWs almost in formation, not fighting each other. The sensible thing for them to do now would be stay calm for 2 or 3 laps, enlarge that gap to the 5th place car, and then perhaps fight for position towards the end of the race. If they start fighting now, they'll slow each other up and fall back into the clutches of the other group. So I'm sure they're sensible enough to hold station for the time being. Larini here seems to be struggling a bit with understeer, and the 2 Seats to me definitely look quicker. Just having a look at the last lap times, which hasn't yet updated on our screen, so I can't compare the lap times, but those 2 Seats definitely looking to get past. And then further back there was a big midfield scrap involving Robert Huff in another Chevrolet and some of the independent Seats. Here we're switching back to that group. Huff is the blue car on the outside. There's an Alfa in the mix, and 2 or 3 Jordi Genet there regaining his position, but there's a good fight here for a midfield position. The yellow BMW in the front there, so Huff holding his own, those 2 Seats side by side. And that Alfa there shaping up for a run. This is the uphill section of the track towards the end of the lap where the cars climb uphill, and diving down the inside was another of the independents there. They're showing a good account of themselves, the independent cars here. That they as the 4 BMWs take another lap, beginning lap 5, and the gap to Larini is enlarging, and the Seats, Ivan Muller no longer pressuring Larini so hard, so they will want to regain that position as soon as they can. There's Peddler's independent Alfa following the other Seat of Cortals, so good independent battle there for I think that's the lead of the independent class after the Italian Rangoni went off. And Zanardi has a look inside Farfus but thinks better of it. That's how close they are together. Zanardi, the ex-Formula 1 and kart driver, drives with hand controls. Remember, he had a horrendous crash in IndyCar, lost both of his legs, and his performance is amazing. He drives a car fully modified with hand controls, hand throttle, hand clutch, and giving a good account of himself, but not battling too hard at the minute. I think there'll be discretion the better part of valour for the beginning of the race.
Yes, the last thing they'd want to do is take any one of the fellow BMW drivers out.
Sure.
And they seem to have things sewn up at the front there at the moment, quite a gap back from those front 4 BMWs. With it being such a short race, how much of a difference does that make in terms of any sort of race strategy?
Well, there's less strategy, obviously. It's more of a battle, but remember, all 4 of these guys drive for the same manufacturer, and the manufacturer title is for manufacturers is probably more important than the driver's title. So they're paid professionals. Their job is to deliver results, and what will get them the biggest slap on the wrist is if 2 of them knock each other off. They drive for different teams, although they're all BMW. There's an Italy team, a Germany team, a UK team, but obviously it's all under the BMW umbrella, so they're required to do a job, and doing the job they are. The cars look strong and still extending that gap. Meanwhile, Larini holding up the 2 Seats. Bit of oversteer from Farfus's car. This is a tight section of the track here, probably 2nd gear, 3rd, 4th, out onto the straight to start lap 6, so we're just about halfway through.
This was where Zanardi tried having a look at Farfus, but Farfus held on to 3rd place there.
Still shaping up, Zanardi, very close to Farfus, so let's see if he has another run. They're now approaching the corner where he had to go on the last lap, so see if he goes again. Farfus carrying 60 kilos of ballast, remember, which is the maximum, and Zanardi has none.
And we just saw maybe the first real evidence there of any dust flying up. We've seen it in qualifying and in the other support races this weekend. So on lap 6 of what's now an 11-lap race. Was originally 10 laps, but the safety car came out after incidents in the first lap, which took out championship leader Andy Prio. He didn't get beyond the first corner, and his first race of the weekend is over. But his BMW, fellow BMW drivers dominant at the moment, opening up quite a gap in front of the rest of the field. The 1, 2, 3 and 4th places all BMWs, and Felix Portero, the pole sitter, the 23-year-old Spaniard, currently out in front ahead of Georg Muller in second place.
Yeah, and the strong runner there in that group is Alex Zanardi in 4th, with no success ballast on. Remember, he's challenging the 3rd place BMW of Augusto Farfus, which is carrying the maximum ballast of 60 kilos. They're now on the uphill section of the track, so this is where Farfus will be hurting the most, and let's see if Zanardi can have a lunge into the last chicane. They're approaching the last chicane now, which is a left-right, and that then leads onto the pit straight. He doesn't quite look close enough. There's that gaggle led by Nicola Larini, the Chevrolet. 2 works, Seats in behind, Ivan Muller, and Tiago Montero, I think, is the next one. And the next car through, Alan Menu's Chevrolet, James Thompson's Alfa Romeo, and then the independent Seat of Pedala.
Nicola Larini, currently 5th in the standings, had a fruitless weekend in Po, didn't pick up any points there a fortnight ago. One of the oldest men on the grid, 43 years old, is Nicola Larini, the Italian, in one of the 3 Seat Lassettis. But it's Portero, Muller, Farfus and Zanardi, as it has been since the safety car restart.
And Zanardi's still battling. He dives on the inside. That's the place where he's tried the 2 previous laps, and he's carried it off this time.
So Zanardi up into 3rd. Good move, and I would expect him probably to start to go away from that car now of Farfus. Farfus starting 9th on the grid, remember, after that penalty, and carrying the maximum 60 kilos of ballast, so he's done well, maybe benefiting out of the safety car, but still a good drive.
Yeah, it's a good promotion by Farfus. He'll be kind of glad for the first corner incident, and same applies to Muller. Those 2 both penalised yesterday, remember, after qualifying, and now sitting pretty in 2nd and 4th, so they'll be happy with the way this race has gone. Still holding on to 5th is Nicola Larini, and the Seats don't seem to have the pace. They're obviously staying with him, but they can't seem to find their way through. Following behind them is Alan Menu in the other Chevrolet. Fairly status quo, this group, but it did look initially like as the Seats were all over the back of Nicola Larini and they would have a go, but they seem to have lost a bit of pace now.
The 2 Seats sandwiched between the 2 Chevrolets, and we're on board here, as you can see.
Zanardi, that
Farfus just seemed to be, the back end seemed to be coming out quite a bit there from that onboard shot from the front of his car.
Yeah, remember that car's got the ballast on. The ballast, it's usually lead weight bolted to the floor, but you can move it around. You can put it where you like in the car, obviously, and that affects the way the car handles. But that car, it does seem to be oversteering a bit, so the rear tyre's suffering a bit, with maybe that's due to where the ballast is placed. But anyway, he's looking strong. I think his 4th position is fairly safe. Larini doesn't have the pace to close that gap, and these 4 close together also. Good result there from James Thompson, running in 9th. Remember, he was, I think, only 14th on the grid, which is a poor starting position.
That's right, yeah, 14th.
He won twice in Valencia, and he seemed to be struggling with a lot of understeer yesterday in qualifying, so he's also another one that's profited from the first corner incident.
So at the moment, a BMW procession in the first race of the day in the World Touring Car Championships in Brno. And someone's got to make a move pretty quickly from the Seat or the Chevrolet team if they are going to try and catch them. But that quartet of BMW seems so far ahead now. It would take maybe one of them doing something silly to cause something to give the other cars to bunch up.
To give these a chance.
They all seem to be being a bit sensible at the moment. Not surprisingly, the BMWs there, you can see them all nicely spread out.
That is for only 8 laps of competition. And running wide, Larini here, so let's see if Muller has a chance. Muller should switch inside on the exit of this corner. Yeah, he's close enough, but I think Larini will move across to close the gap. That's the Seat team boss there having a look, and no, the Seat doesn't seem quick enough on the straight. Remember, Larini was slow onto that straight, and Muller didn't even get alongside, so very evenly matched, these cars. Of course, the different makes of cars have got different strong points in different areas, and one of the reasons that Seat changed the engine on the car of Genet was that they've been complaining of lack of straight line speed. Lack of straight line speed obviously makes your overtaking harder. It means you've got to do a big lunge on the brakes. So Genet's car was quick. He was starting the race from the second row, but of course he was in the gravel at that first lap incident involving Andy Priaulx, so we can't really see the true competitiveness of that car until race 2 perhaps, but these two don't have the straight line speed on the Chevrolet to get alongside.
So Portero, having led from the start, still leading after 8 laps in Brno, race 1 of the World Touring Cars weekend, with Jörg Müller, Alex Zanardi and Augusto Farfus, the BMW front 4. Nicola Larini in the Chevrolet in 5th, but getting pushed all the time by Ivan Muller in the Seat. Race 2 this afternoon, remember, the front 8 places get reversed, so though the person finishing 8th will start on pole position. Do you think maybe that's in the mind of these Chevrolets and the 2 Seats, why they're not really going for it possibly as much as they might be?
Possibly, but menu holder's position currently in 8th.
Lap 9 of 11, round 9 of the World Touring Car Championships in Brno in the Czech Republic. The forest lined track here, plenty of wide open spaces for overtaking, but at the moment it's been a procession for BMW pretty much since the start. Incidents on the opening lap brought out the safety car, but Felix Portero, the pole man, got away well along with his BMW drivers. Andy Priaulx, though, the BMW man and championship leader, coming off in that first corner incident, but since then it's been a procession for BMW, and the men you can see on the screen now have been occupying places 5 to 8, the 2 Chevrolets sandwiching the 2 Seat drivers.
Yeah, and I can see these cars, even though we've only 2 laps left now, those cars are starting to move around a bit more on their tyres, so obviously the performance of the tyres is degrading a bit as we switch to the leader. Portero looking strong, Jörg Müller sitting in station behind him, and Alex Zanardi 3rd. The tyres of these 4 cars here are starting to go downhill a bit, and there's a few more movements, a bit more sliding, so we might see a place change. And having a lunge there is that Pedala in the independent Seat right on the back of James Thompson. So he's in his first race here in the WTCC, giving a good account of himself, and he'll be looking to make a name for himself. So he should be tucked under the back of Thompson there mid-screen, so see if he has a dive into the first corner. We go back on board with the Seat here of Tarquini sitting in 7th place. There's got little gaps I see in the background. Pedala didn't get Thompson, so back to the leaders. Portero through the second chicane. Zanardi comes through, followed by Farfus, remember, with maximum ballast on that car, and second place in the championship, Augusto Farfus, which he's going to increase his place. In fact, I think if he stays there, he'll probably take the championship lead at the end of this race from Andy Priaulx.
Yeah, just 2 points between the championship leader Priaulx and Augusto Farfus, but Priaulx having gone out on the first lap as they all went into the opening corner and bunched up together, and a couple of casualties. Priaulx the most dominant of those, so he won't pick up any points from this first race of the Brno weekend, but they all have a chance to make amends in race 2, although Priaulx will be starting at the back of the grid.
Yeah, that's right, the non-finishers will start automatically at the back of the grid. The first 8 finishers will be reversed, so 8th place currently Alan Menu, the blue car there, will have pole position, and the winner will start 8th. The rest of the field will start race 2 as they finish race 1, but of course the first lap non-finishers will be right at the back of the grid, so they've got it all to do for race 2. The leaders then climbing uphill at the end of the lap. Portero, Jörg Müller seems to have good pace. He's stayed right with him the whole race, but we haven't seen an overtaking move from Müller. Müller with 45 kilos of ballast, Portero's car only 5, so that is a significant difference between those two. But here they round the final corner to start the last lap. 1 lap to go, P1, that's what you like to see on your board. Zanardi through in 3rd.
Portero from Spain, a 23-year-old, started, as many do, a career in kart racing, then went on to race in the World Series for Nissan and Renault, and then last year had a spell in GP2. Didn't finish very high up the standings in GP2, but his performances were enough to earn him a drive in the World Touring Car Championships for BMW Team Italy-Spain. Bit of a mouthful, the team name, but they'll be delighted that he got them the team's first pole position this weekend, and it looks like, unless there's any calamities on the last few corners, that he's going to pick up his first win.
Yeah, great job by the young guy in his first season in this type of racing. Good performance, and the BMWs, as we kind of predicted yesterday, looking very strong on this circuit. As I'd said earlier, they've won 5 of the last 6 races here at Brno in the last 6 years, so this circuit definitely suits the car. Robert Huff was in that big midfield battle, and he's fighting with Luca Rangoni there, the independent in the Alfa. Beg your pardon, the BMW, followed by the 2 Alphas.
He started on 19th on the grid, so he has made up some places, Huff, that's for sure. I was looking for Jordi Janay, who was involved in that first corner incident which took out Andy Prio, and he's well down the field. He started 4th on the grid, but ended up at the back once the racing resumed. He managed to get out of the gravel, Prio didn't, but he looks like he's struggled ever since.
Yeah, we haven't seen much of him. He's been working his way back through the field, and the 2 leaders climb up. Just 2 corners to go now for Portero to take his first win. Fingers crossed by his mechanics. Ready with the flag, Spanish flag, so that's his first win, and Jörg Müller tails him all the way home. BMW dominant performance, 1, 2, 3, 4, and no squabbling amongst themselves. Zanardi 3rd, and great win by Portero.
Yep, congratulations to Felix Portero of Spain. His team obviously delighted. His maiden win in World Touring Cars. Jörg Müller from Germany coming home in 2nd place. Alex Zanardi 3rd, and Augusto Farfus bringing home a quartet of BMWs. They led from start to finish after the safety car came out after the first lap shunts. Nicola Larini in 5th place, Ivan Müller in 6th, and we'll have some reaction from here in Brno in a couple of minutes' time. Do stay with us. And the victor of round 9 of the World Touring Car Championships in Brno, Felix Portero, bringing his BMW back to the pits. His Italian-Spain team colleagues obviously delighted. The maiden win for Portero, his first season in World Touring Cars, topping a quartet of BMW drivers. Alex Zanardi there, you saw him, he came home in 3rd place. Jörg Müller in 2nd, and 4th was Augusto Farfus. So Farfus now has a 2-point lead at the top of the championship table, ahead of Andy Prio, who was taken out on the first corner. That first corner incident, pretty much the only incident in the race, really. After that, it was pretty much a procession. Yeah, there's Portero celebrating with the team boss Roberto Ravaglia, who's an ex-touring car driver himself with a long history of success. Jörg Müller looking very happy also. Yeah, the first corner incident, there were basically 20 cars trying to get into the space that could fit 10 cars, and it was kind of inevitable, but unfortunately the one that came off worst was our championship leader, Andy Prio. Jordi Janay, 2nd row starter, also went through the gravel, but he regained the track, albeit right at the back of the field. Jörg Müller happy with his 2nd place.
and that should strengthen his championship position. Does he move up a place, or is he still in third place? He went into the race in third place, so
yes, he still remains third.
It closes the gap. Yeah.
He's now just 3 points behind Prio,
and Farfus takes the lead after that race.
And so the 4 BMWs coming in first to fourth. And remember, the grid for race 2, the top 8 finishers reverse places, so the person finishing 8th will start in pole position on race 2.
Yeah, that's Alain Menu in the Chevrolet. So we'll have these 4 BMWs will make up 5th through 8th on the grid, but we've seen the performance they've got. I'm sure they can progress from there, and I'm sure that's probably a recipe for more overtaking in the second race, because it certainly today seems to be the BMWs that have got the performance advantage and this hot and dusty track.
So Alain Menu will start race 2 in pole position, followed by the 2 Seats of Gabriele Tarquini, Ivan Muller, and then in 4th place will be the other Chevrolet of Nicola Larini, followed then by those 4 BMWs, Farfus, Zanardi, Muller and Portero, the race winner, starting race 2 in 8th, and then from 9th onwards it's as you were. So 9th on the grid for race 2 will be Britain's James Thompson.
There's the car of Ivan Muller. He didn't make it back to the pits. He's in the pit road entry, and let's switch to the winner.
Felix Portero, only 8 races until your first win in the WTCC. You must be delighted.
I'm very happy. When we start this weekend, we are quickly the first drivers, and so after the team works very hard, and now the car was very competitive, and in my back was George Muller, and I was always relaxed because I take a gap to insurance. So I am very happy because I hope to be in the podium but not first, so I am very happy.
Thank you, congratulations.
Very happy, as you might imagine, with his maiden win and the first win for the BMW Team Italy-Spain. The BMWs, although they're the same manufacturer, different teams, but it all adds to the points for the Manufacturers' Championship, and BMW, along with being dominant in the Drivers' Championship, are also dominant for the manufacturers.
Yeah, there's confirmation of the finishing order, and BMW came into this race leading the championship, and they have significantly strengthened it there, especially over Seat, who are their main rivals, and the first Seat finished in 6th position, so that's a great result for BMW, first 4 lockout, and I haven't yet looked at the points of the manufacturers, but for sure they've extended their lead significantly.
And Jordi Janay, who did start 4th on the grid, got involved in that first corner tangle with Andy Prio, did get back on the track, but finished 15th, so well down the order there. So there you see Farfus now leading by 3 points from Andy Prio. Jordi Muller in 3rd. We'll be back shortly. Alex Zanardi just making his way to the podium to pick up his trophy for 3rd place in race 1 of the World Touring Car Championships from Brno, the Czech Republic. An excellent drive for Zanardi. 2nd place was Jörg Müller, the German, and the winner, his first win and the first win for the Italy-Spain BMW team, was Felix Portero, taking the top spot on the podium. BMW taking out places 1 to 4 in race 1. It means they'll start 5th to 8th, given the reverse grid, and they'll have in front of them the 2 Chevrolets, Menu and Larini, sandwiched at either side of Muller and Tarquini. So Kelvin Burt, how do you see race 2 going, given the dominance of the BMWs in race 1, starting behind those 2 Chevys and the 2 Seats?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the best lap times from race 1. All 4 of the leading BMWs did a 2:13.7. I mean, it's metronomic. They're all within the same tenth of a second. And then the following cars, the best lap of the Chevrolet was in the 15s, and the Seat's mid-14s, no high 14s. So the BMW's definitely got a performance advantage around this circuit today, and I can see them coming through in the race. We should see a lot more fight for the lead, especially with the Chevrolets near the front. Of the top 8, they've got the least pace, so the slower cars are starting at the front and the quicker cars are at the bottom end of the top 10. So that bodes well for a more exciting race too.
And it may well make for an exciting opening corner again if those Chevys and Seats get swamped by the BMWs off the line.
Oh yeah, of course, it's the standing start in race 2, which has historically favoured the BMWs, so that will be interesting. It's a wide run into the first corner, and you can all get through scot-free, but what we saw in race 1 at the start of this race was they were all crowding to the inside, and there was simply just too many cars trying to fit into a small space. So we'll see what happens in race 2. So the drivers then picking up their trophies, and Portero will be glad he's on the top step, because it makes him about the same height as Jörg Müller on the second step, so it's a good job him he didn't finish third. But quite a nice bit of symmetry there.
And they'll have to do it all again in a couple of hours' time. Coverage, of course, on Eurosport this afternoon of race 2 from Brno, and the new support series following the World Touring Car Championships around the International Formula Masters. The second race of that to come on Eurosport as well. If you can't get near your television set but can get online, you can watch live streaming of both of the races, World Touring Cars and International Formula Masters, by going to our website, eurosport.yahoo.com. That's eurosport.yahoo.com for live streaming of all the races every weekend that the World Touring Car Championships is running. So, a bit of a BMW procession in race 1 after the safety car went in after the first lap incidents, taking out 1, 2, 3 and 4 BMW, followed by the 2 Chevys and the 2 Seats. But let's hope for a bit more of an exciting race in race 2, Kelvin.
Yeah, and just looking there at the independent winner on the right of the picture, just receiving champagne, that's Massimiliano Pedala. Remember, he was the stand-in for Roberto Colciago, who was injured last time out, so that's a good start for him in his first WTCC race. The win in the independents, and he finished 10th overall. I remember pressuring James Thompson in the Alpha. Jörg Müller gives Portero a hand up. He's up on his tiptoes to make sure he gets in the picture. But yeah, dominant performance from the BMWs, and it'll be interesting to see whether that continues in race 2.
And Prio losing his top spot in the championship by coming off in that first corner incident, now 2 points behind Farfus, 3 points behind Farfus in the championship table. Be interesting to see how much Prio can do, starting right at the back of the grid there with a 60 kilo weight ballast.
I think he will perhaps lose some of that ballast, but they're quite economical with the champagne there. Portero gets an eyeful, which always stings. He's obviously inexperienced, and Muller's got him from behind. He was only just getting over the first bit, so that's done him in big style.
Oh dear.
He won't be that unhappy, really.
No. Okay, great stuff to end race 1 from Brno. We hope you can join us for race 2. From Kelvin Burt and myself, Mike Lawrence, we'll see you later on.